Thank you for staying with us after our screening of Where the Heart Settles. Once more, I'm Duyen, one of the three members of VIF's Curatorial Committee this year. Joining me today are some of the filmmakers whose movies were a part of the set you just completed. I would like them to introduce themselves, starting with Anh Nguyen.
Hello everyone, my name is Anh Nguyen. I am the writer and director for We Used to Take the Long Way Home.
Thanks, Anne. Next, can I invite Wang Yi Nguyen to join us?
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. Wen Yi Nguyen, she, her, hers. I'm the director and co-writer of Little Bird.
Next, we'll have Tiffany Vu.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany Vu. I'm the director and writer of Surrender.
And lastly, but not least, we have Felix Beck.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. I'm director of Goodbye My Doe.
Thank you all again for joining us in all different parts of the world. So we are happy to have you here and just want to get a little bit more insight on the background of your film and what inspired you to make it. Since this set is called Where the Heart Settles, the term home stood out to me in kind of capturing this whole set and idea. So I wanted to ask you, what does home mean to each of you? Anyone can go first. Feel free. Maybe I'll
all right, I go.
Okay.
Well, I mean, in my film, you can see like home is real. Like, there's a question also that the two children asking each other like where you want to be and so on. And for me, home is really where, like in their her. It doesn't really matter where. It's just really where there are families members around. So that is very clear question to me, and at least I think that is very easy to answer. So I go first.
Perfect. Yes, it's true. Our members are people, right?
I think for me and Little Bird, home is kind of, looked at when refugees had to leave home, actual homes. So how do they rebuild home? But also the complex like relationship to missing home when you're in a completely new space, a new place. And there's so much grief and loss in the word home. So I think that kind of examined that in Little Bird for each character, Lynn and Twee.
Thanks, Wayne.
I think in Surrender, home is kind of where people can be kind of open and vulnerable and really confess to one another truly what their heart desires. And I think we don't really see that between the mother and daughter in Surrender until the very end at this very holy temple, which was kind of supposed to represent that. So I hope the audience got that.
Well, I feel like for the protagonist in my film, Lynn, I feel like she always viewed Vietnam as quote unquote home because she was an immigrant and she was being away from home. But then I think going back, the whole film kind of like challenge and make her redefine what is home, because the proverbial home in her mind have changed so much over time. So I think for my character, she's still figuring out what exactly that is for her. But for me, home, I think home is just a state of mind. Yeah, not a physical locale or anything. Yeah.
All your answers provide a really multifaceted definition of what home looks like, right? It's sometimes the people around us, the spatial surroundings, or how our mind imagines that to be. In the process of making your films, I'm always curious because even for me, on my academic research hat, when I was writing and doing my research, the stories changed for what I found out. So I wanted to ask you, while making your respective films, was there anything about the process that allowed you to learn more about the story you were filming?
So for Little Bird is actually inspired by my docuseries Taking Root. And the docuseries examines like how Southeast Asians were resettled in Philadelphia after the war. So Little Bird is actually my thesis film at AFI, so it's based in LA. So what I ended up doing is also researching stories of refugees, not in just OC area, but also Hollywood area, and also Koreatown in LA. And I think that process kind of led me to see kind of like similarities of how people resettled in LA versus Philly, And then also people who were part of the film, like the background actors, some of them were refugees from Texas, and also shared that they had very similar experiences. So that was kind of the process of like how I researched and made Little Bird, and kind of created those parallels in different cities of how people were resettled.
That's powerful. The comparative perspective can allow us to see that common thread. Thank you.
Totally.
Well, I feel like for my film, because for this film, I kind of work with non-actor who are of the actual age of the character that I'm trying to portray, 18, 19-year-olds. And we did actually go on a road trip with them. I feel like that process itself really, I feel like, of course, my film had an aspect of time traveling, but in a way by hanging out with these people who for the longest time, I was like, oh, 18, 19-year-old, like, we're not that different from each other. But actually being there along with them, I'm like, wow, I'm truly am on the other side, kind of reporting back now. So I think the generational difference, well, that's a lot, but, from there being with the young people, immersing myself in their actual world off the screen, kind of led me into the war of adolescent again. So that was kind of helpful in making my film.
And you're still relatively young, so it's really interesting to see that already distinction between.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I think in my film, mine was also a thesis for my film program, and I think it was slightly inspired by a true story of me and my grandma. So of course, as a director and writer, I have my own perspective of it. But I think one of the wonderful things about being a director is really trusting your actors and like letting them bring their truth into it. So it was interesting to have Miju, who plays the mom, her bring her perspective as a mom with kids into the role, and then also Kat bring her experience into the role as someone who has really close ties with her family. So I think that definitely changed the story, and I had to rewrite some parts of the script because of that, but I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, even watching the film, it very felt personal to like the characters and who they were. I know like our background as Vietnamese American has that, but it was very much within the character's own and storyline. So thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. Felix?
So for me, the starting point was really just a conversation between me and my mom while we having dinner when I came back to Vietnam and visiting her. And then she was saying a trip that really incredible how she made it while she was 6-7 years old, and real like escape of the evacuation area. And I would say like, wow, it's really crazy. So even though my film set in a historical time being, but then I really wanted to tell a story not only for historical side of the story, but like more emotionally, and also like because of that, so I have to learn a lot of historical things that happening around in that time, and also like how to convert it to a story seen through the eyes of the children. And that's also like I wanted to convey the history through the eyes of children. And also like me, I'm considering that I'm a children, because I mean, I have not lived through this time. So I think that I see it in a way very naive as the children in this story. So I wanted to give it that way, and that is the things that I learned a lot while studying about the story, and then convert it in another way to translate it.
Yeah, kids bickering, or those little moments of the brother sister love as well as frustration definitely carries out, and it's something really the innocence about it. Since you brought up your mom, I actually did have a question now that I'd love to enter and dive deep into each of your respective films. Felix, if you could share with us what aspect of your mom's story really stood out to you that helped shape this filmmaking, or this film?
So basically, the whole things happening in the film was how the story of my mom happening, and I really borrow all the emotional that how she wanted to see my grandmother at that time and so on. Well, except for the tragic point in the end. because it's it's still fictional. So I remember like she told me when she arrived at home and she just walking without knowing where exactly, because at that time it was much easier for people to, I don't know, people trust each other much more than nowadays. I have the feeling. And she also said like there's nothing really dangerous and people have each other. And I also wanted to, like bring that point in, but to this film is unfortunately it's impossible because it's already as long as it is. So to the point where my grandmother saw her at home. So my mom arrived at home and she actually was sleeping and so on, because this was quite a long journey. Um, Instead of like scolding her and so on, and she would just shed in tear, really. And I listened to the both sides of the story, and I tried to bring it to this film. And,
That's rare to get to hear both sides. Sometimes our grandparents have passed, so that's really great to get that too. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
story. Many of these films also have that personal touch. We Used to Take the Long Way Home has that bit of reflection, as you shared, Anne. And I was curious how creating this film was a journey of self-healing for you.
Yeah, so actually I was kind of like that kid before I moving to America. And even in America, historically going to school in Vietnam, I always the kid with like the cameras, kind of like document everything, making a little vlog and things. So I feel like when this all beginning, I going back to my personal archive of actual photo and videos and looking at that, I think it was really healing for me, because for the longest time I was kind of being a little brat and was just thinking like moving to America is like the worst thing that happened to me. And I was like, if only my adolescence didn't get cut short, my ideal, like perfect. So it was out of this like very bratty mood that I was like, oh, actually, let's sit back and let's start dissecting why you think this way, right? And then I feel like I realized I was being a little bit reductionistic and kind of like I feel this like ultra romanticization of my past was like not only harmful to me, but also to the people who was in my life. So in a way, by making the story really seeing through everyone and like not feeling so emotional about, I was able to come to a more mature, I guess, conclusion about how, and I feel like the kind of angst and pain is so universal, regardless of whether you like immigrate or not, or if you're like, like Asian American. I feel it's just like it's very normal for teens to feel like they're kind of on some sort of thing. And like, I feel like that death of like the child and becoming an adult, I feel like that this film is kind of my way of like physical, make it into like, memorialize it, I guess.
Yeah, it's an ode to your childhood, but also a growing moment, right? You are so introspective in the process in which you carried out this film and to even produce it. With that level of kind of message in a personal level, I mean, your film allows us to see a bigger theme that exists and is set in the 1980s, right? With refugees, our community this has been 50 years, right? That marks a really big diaspora. I wonder if your film can also be taken to the present and see if there might be any themes and messages from the film that can be lessons for us in this current political climate.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I screened Little Bird in LA a couple weeks ago, and there was a Latino filmmaker who made a documentary about gentrification in LA and like Latino communities. And we were like, whoa, there's a lot of some similarities here. And they would message me saying like, my family was also resettled similarly. And just like, I think it goes beyond Vietnamese communities, it's Southeast Asian communities, but it's also Latino communities, Black communities in the 80s, but even now how people still experience displacement in ways that really separates families as well. You know, we see ICE, the ways that it has separated families recently in America. So yeah, I think some people who watched Little Bird said, oh, I thought this was based like right now. So I definitely think there are very common themes that is just in the 80s, but are still happening today.
Yeah, and as we still see different levels of war and conflict,
Exactly.
is going to happen as well. There is another issue that I think we face in America, which is our healthcare system. So Tiffany, your film really helps shows the challenges of just advocating for yourself in general. So in making this film, are there any lessons you learned that could help us navigate the complexity of America's healthcare system?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, the film comes from a very personal story, and that is which my grandma's really hesitant to go to the doctor. I think, especially with the kind of microaggressions she's faced throughout the years, and then especially when COVID hit, it was really devastating to watch. And I've heard it's been a common thing among the community of like just older generation not wanting to go to the doctor, not trusting it. But then the bigger issue of just not having access to healthcare or more doctors that are people of color. I don't know what really is the solution to that, but it definitely is something that I've thought more about since making my film of what is there to do about this issue, which seems ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, sharing the story itself, I just am reminded and kind of learning that process of having to advocate yourself, even though it's frustrating, it's like letting people know, like, you do have to learn and understand, you know, like the medical field and its language. You can learn it and be able to help others. So like rather than give faith in just the whole medical field itself. Yeah, I wish we could change it, but maybe that's the first step, right? Is to ensure everyone's consciousness is raised within that. I'll continue a little bit with you, Tiffany. In terms of a micro level of the film, it highlights the tensions and frustrations between a mother and daughter relationship that ultimately boils down to their deep love for one another. How can this film help families interact in a more uplifting way?
I think it's interesting because I wrote this film and then after my parents have seen it for the first time, I think like last Friday, which is very interesting. And I think it opened a big dialogue of like, I wish we shared our feelings more and maybe not worry so much about holding it back to not burden one another with each other's feelings, which I think ultimately is what the film is about. Just being very honest with one another and finding opportunities to do so. So I hope other families can take that away and, you know, find a time and place for it before, you know, everyone gets a little too old and you start having regrets about it.
Yeah, it is a challenging process. I don't know when you share with your family, does it also create like, it's not just the content that you share, but how your body experiences that sharing process that also can make it difficult
Yeah.
to go about. Yeah. With that process of sharing, it's a little bit stretching to a bigger thing, but it's a methodology part that I wanted to ask Anyi. As you research your film on Little Bird, there are strategies and did you find any strategies and tactics that could be useful for us to learn in this contemporary period to combat injustice? Or let me rephrase why. Found useful. So are there any strategies and tactics you found useful or creative to combat injustice that could be applied to organizing efforts today?
I mean, I think when you know, this administration was elected, the first thing I thought of is how important community is. And then Little Bird and Taking Root, the reason why I was able to make Taking Root was because I partnered with Viet Lead in Philly. And they are organizers and they've been in the community for, you know, 15 plus years. They built those relationships with people. And so the community leaders are ready to talk. People are ready to talk because they trusted them. And so Little Bird too, and like with a young girl, and she has her community, right? Even like this is like some of these people are her family, and some people aren't. She has community, and Lynn doesn't, right? So that's what she's missing. and her grief of like having lost so much. So I think it comes back to building your own community. I think we live in a day and age where it's very easy to be isolated. I think I've had many conversations with people that don't even know their neighbors, and like after many, many years, still don't talk to their neighbors. So beyond like strategy, it will always come down to building a relationship with each other and taking care of each other and making an effort to get to know the people around us and building a community very intentionally.
Oh, that's really powerful. As I just sit on like my political science hat and think like when you look at leaders and how they rise, like especially dictatorships, they tend to rise by divide and conquer, right? But you're basically describing that opposite anecdote is to build community. And honestly, through how movements form, like the civil rights movement, it started out with like churches, right? And schools, those were spaces of community. So that is an important point to share. Thank you, Aimee.
Of course.
And I was really curious about your last scene because all the characters are lying on the pavement, and it left a striking impression for me because it also touches with what I've heard in Vietnam is the level of accidents and motorcycle accidents that happen. What was the message or symbolism you wanted to invoke with this final scene after what seemed to be quite a carefree summer road trip with friends?
Well, I feel like the ending sequence of them kind of right into the dark abyss with like the city skyline in the back, and the ending of them kind of lying there, because the whole movie is kind of about how the main protagonist remember things and how memory kind of distort and obfuscate over time. So I feel like I want to cap the end to be a bit ambiguous, and the kind of like the static frozen net is like it's almost like this perfect little memory of summer, of youth, of fun is kind of preserved within the protagonist's mind, and that she can always revisit it. It's kind of, and she doesn't need to be like physically there or be actually time traveling, but she can always revisit this kind of soft tender moment in her mind. And that's why I kind of go back to the idea of like she's always dreaming, because I feel like looking back things is, I feel like, is very like sacred for like artists, and I just want to leave it as that.
Yeah, dreams help keep our memories alive in some ways. With the set, there's a theme of a space and place. And so, Felix, I wanted to ask you, because there are beautiful scenes of land and that level of innocence that I think mirrors the brother-sister bond that exists between the main characters as well. So connecting to this film's theme place, this whole film set, what role did land play in your artistic creation of the film?
Sorry, can you yeah?
Yeah, I'll restate it just one more time. So specifically, what if it did, what role did land play in the artistic creation of this film?
The land. What? Well, I mean, if we look at in a way, physically, I mean, it's very rude way, but it's like reclaim lands and so on. But I don't really think about that at all when I'm doing this film at all. So
how about the cinematic placement of things?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, how to say that in a way, in a better way. Let's say, I mean, the story of war in every story is about the land, right? So I'm actually not really interested to express this message or whatever, but what to me is really like to tell people about the emotionals, more about the emotional insight, and even like whenever we are or wherever we are, I mean, it doesn't change the land for me. The peace of mind is the place, is the land that I wanted to convey in all my stories actually. So it's somehow a red line that I'm following, and also like in all kind of story that I'm trying to to tell in even like in the next story and so on. That is still in development. And so yeah, this question is somehow very abstract to me, so I don't know if I actually answer the question or actually I'm trying to avoid it rather than that.
No. It's describing that actually sometimes we put too much emphasis in our surroundings, but we forget like that relation. And I think your focus is the relation. Ironically, though, as I watched the film, the way that you filmed it, certain spaces and places helped create that bond, right? I just vividly remember the scene where they're on the train track, and
Yeah.
it shifts right to the scene. So like there's such a focus on that environment, but what you really want to get is that the key is the bond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you interpret.
actually, okay, now I get it better because yeah, you're right. I mean, the train track is actually keeping um, a key member, a key item. How to say it? Like, sorry for my
No.
English. Is keeping a key role in here. Also, like if you see the whole film, the character is only going in one direction. They are only going to one direction,
Mm.
and the train track is also keeping their journey in continuum. Even though, I mean, the children, I mean, their goal is to go to their mothers to find her, but also they are also just children, so they are very distracting during the journey, so they are not really only focused on that. And that is also like their um it's just their own nature to being a children, to want to be with each other, to like conflict with each other, but also they wanted to see their mom, everything they wanted at once. And that's how I wanted to build the world around, as I said before, how they see the war, because I mean it's cruel, but they see it somehow differently than how we see.
Mm.
And what most important is like, I think just like to see their mother, and the train track keep metaphor, and also to help, well, technically it help people to to follow their journey, even though they are just like wandering around somehow.
Yeah. It's it keeps us this linear straight idea of their ultimate goal, but that sometimes we have these differing interests that make detract from the train track that we're on. Is that how I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is powerful and key, and it happens at all ages. Sometimes as we get older, yeah, you're right, we're a bit more straight path, but we're getting distracted a lot these days as well. I think social media helps with that a bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
if you look at it as a time track, I mean, they follow the time track, but somehow,
Mm.
they got lost in the middle, and then going back to it and so on. So it's also a metaphor for a lifetime, so uh, right.
Yeah, indeed. I got to ask a lot of the questions I was interested in. I'm curious if any of you have questions for each other or observations, if you had the opportunity to watch each other's films.
I did. I have a couple. If that's all right.
Oh.
I think as someone who's just gotten out of film school and still trying to master their craft in writing, I think something that everyone here in this block did very well was intentionally using scenes without dialogue in them. I think some of those scenes were the most beautiful and emotional scenes. So I'm thinking about the radio scene in Little Bird, or these long driving sequences in We Used to Take the Long Way Home, and these like cinematic landscapes in Goodbye My Dove. So I was curious about your intentions as a director and writer in making those scenes.
Oh, I guess I can go first. I feel like this is not coming from me. I didn't go to film school and thing, but my creative partner / my mentor kind of tell me how like a good film should just be you should be able to, a good rule of thumb, you should be able to like understand the story without really hearing the dialogue really. And I feel like, you know what, you're right, because I feel like before this I've done kind of other media of art, and I was always wondering to myself like, why film? Like, you know, because like out of all the medium I could choose to tell, because it's ultimately it's about the temporal and the space, right? So I feel like, and I guess for this specific project, I feel like the role is such an important, it's a role movie, you know, it's a role movie after all. So of course the role. And I feel like there is a kind of, if you go to Vietnam, you know, everyone go travel via the scooter. And I feel like there is just like such an intimacy of, even if you like don't like each other, even if you strangers like sitting together in this like tiny vehicle, that says a lot. And also just how like Felix was saying, how about the path and things, and of course the road for my movie is also kind of a symbol for like traversing time as well. So that's why I chose to include extended montage and of them traveling on the road without anything, because I feel like I just wanted to feel really lived in. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. I love that question. It sounds like such a like a duh, this is visual storytelling, but it's actually really hard to do. And sometimes when you're first starting off, you just want to put everything in there in dialogue to like make sure people don't like, you know, misunderstand what you're saying. But yeah, it was very, very intentional. And I think in the ways that even the composition, like what's behind the character, I learned through one of my professors, Ralph Spera, like what, you know, it's not just about the actor and the dialogue. You have so many tools as a director. You have the production design in the back, what's behind them. And if you could just pause the scene, what is the story there, like visually? And so, yeah, that was like super intentional. In Little Bird, a lot of the scenes we really relied on the production design, but also how the character was framed. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Felix?
Yeah, how to say, yeah, it's my film actually is, there are a lot of direct of dialogue and so on, and also there are most of things is very difficult also like to talk with the children, because they didn't really understand what they are speaking, and there are a lot of time that we have to find a way to tell them, to let them understand how it actually that means. They even like asked me what about death and so on. They didn't understand the same way. So I mean, I have to translate it somehow to them in a different way, in a different emotional that can rely to what they can feel, and that's the most thing that I think is quite different. And somehow they did not learn it by heart all the time, and we just we repeat a lot together, like for 2 weeks and so on, before, because when we decided to film, it's really such a short time that we have to prepare, but it's quite instant. So with the children, we just, you know, like repeat it together, read it together, understand what it means, what it should feel like, what the feeling is like to be in that scenes, and that's how it's happening. And just before every shot, we have to repeat it with them, and they also like say it with their true heart also. And that's also the first thing that I'm doing, and it's with the children. So I think it was really difficult. And even though with the decoration also, it's not really easy to do that, especially in a word time. And I'm that's why I'm really appreciate the theme with Little Bird, with the set design also. That was really incredible. And yeah, I love also the pop star in the film. We used to take the long way to go home, and surrender with the emotional, the actress, and and also the theme of to talk about the future, the people believe and how they rejoin it in the end. It's really beautiful.
Well, thank you, Felix, for also adding your thoughts on each of everyone's films as well. We have one more time. We have time for one more question or thought. Anyone have any burning questions for each other?
If no one else has one, I'll pop in with one. I think something I'm always curious about learning is how casting worked for all of you, because I think one of the big struggles I faced was trying to cast a Vietnamese family, which seems very hard. So that's just something I was curious about all of your process for doing.
I can go on this one. Actually, it's quite difficult as well because I was casting in 2 times. Because I'm living in Belgium, and so the first time casting we was do it online. Well, online, virtually with my with the producer. We were choosing the candidatures that we feel there's potentially, and then we invited them to the casting. And it was it was funny because I tried to mix them together, but actually it did not happen. And so I have to be the one to replace either the sister or the brother. And finally it was very, very fun because I can feel like how I can get into the story and how they, after in the beginning it was quite difficult to get them into the role, but I think after 5 or 10 years, 5 or 10 minutes, sorry, 10 years, they started to be in a role play with me, and every emotion is going out. It's really easy, and especially like with children, it's amazing. It's difficult to control it, but I mean, it's amazing to see how it's pure, all the emotion that they just let out like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Thank you, Felix. And
Oh yeah, for my casting, I've kind of approached this very unconventionally. So because like I said before, all my actor are non-actors. I have worked with the main girl before for my other film, and she's a film student in Vietnam actually. And then I have a really great time working with her. She really understood what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to say. So I casted her again in this role, and then all the friends are her actual friend. So I feel like for my film, because I'm going for like a really naturalistic, very high energy I didn't want to cast like 25-year-old to play at 18-year-old or anything. So I really want to capture the raw, youthful energy. So yeah, they're all friends, and it's very tiring to work with actual teenager because they're a lot, but it was really fun. So yeah, I just basically, I guess, street cast. I don't know, yeah.
For Little Bird, I met Chantal tweet and like a very short online mingle thing, and I just like slid into her DMs. I was just like, "Hey, I have this script. Would you be interested in reading it?" And she really liked it, and that's how we collaborated. And for the young girl who I found for Little Bird, she actually never acted before. She's a child model. I found her on Instagram as well. It's very hard to find a young Vietnamese girl who speaks Vietnamese. And also has that like rawness to her. And so I found Jolie on Instagram. And then everybody else, mainly everybody else, I had a casting director, Nakla, who's also in the film. And that scene with 25 refugees, I also had to find someone to help me find background of Southeast Asians. And that was really, really difficult. But yeah, pulled it off. But also because people here in LA who know Viet folks were literally like, "Hey, you want to be in this film?" So that's how it worked out.
wow, that journey is it does sound really difficult, but key to all this is the representation that all of your films has to show our community, though the talent and work that you all put in to share our stories is so powerful. And Tiffany, thank you for joining me in asking some of these questions. To close us off for today's discussion, I wanted just to ask you if there's any one word, a concept, or a phrase you wanted the audience members to take away from your films.
My word is community.
My word would be summer.
I think the word that comes to mind is confession.
If you have another language that's easier to share too, Felix, I know sometimes translating English is hard.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I get the question because sorry.
Yeah, just
The
some.
one word I wanted to
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
live it away of my film.
Mhm.
Does it mean like I don't want it to exist in the film, or?
No. That you that felt powerful to you from your film that you want someone to remember your film by, like a word,
Right.
a concept. Yeah, that.
Wow, it's really difficult to find one word and represent everything. So I guess just a family bond.
Yes,
Right.
that's true. No word. That's perfect because that was a concept or a phrase. So no need for one word. That's powerful. So we have community, summer, confession, and family bond. And that brings us to the end of this this wonderful discussion. Thank you all for sharing the ins and outs as well as your personal perspective in it. So I want to thank each of our filmmakers, Anne Nguyen, Oanh Nhi Nguyen, Tiffany Vu, and Felix Beck for being with us here. Mandy Kron could not be with us, but I'm sure you all also enjoyed her film. I want to thank also our digital director, Tony Nguyen. He's in the background, but has helped us create a very smooth session for today. Viet Film Fest at home continues all the way through Sunday, October 19th. So please take a look at all the films we have to offer. On behalf of VAALA, VIF, I'm Duyen, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.